Okay, cool. So what we're trying to do is something new.
Something different.
Little shorter clips.
Mm.
We're going to try and release them more often during the week. So on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And they're going to be about 10 to 15 minutes long per clip. It's more bite size, it's more doable, and let us know what you think in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Like, follow, share,
Yes,
comment,
absolutely.
share. And this one is live.
Okay.
We
just quickly.
are live. We are live. Thanks, Hendrik. But Hendrik's, oh, there we go. Look
Okay,
at
now
that.
we can see ourselves.
It seems to be very bright.
It does.
I mean, we are bright, but I mean,
Bright sparks, right?
yeah, that's what I was getting at. Well done.
Like, great minds think alike.
Yeah, and fools.
Fools never differ.
Yeah, seldom differ.
Seldom differ. Yeah.
Maybe we differ. We're the exception to that rule.
Yeah. He's vaccinated, I'm not, so we do differ.
That's true. And I'm boosted now as well.
Nice.
I've got a turbo now.
Ah, lekker.
I've got a COVID turbo.
That's awesome.
My brother got his Bucky straight piped.
Who?
Luke. Straight piped his little Fiat Bucky.
Ew,
That sounds cool, eh?
It must sound lekker now.
One little box at the back, because they said if you don't put the box, it's going to be a problem. People are going to complain.
Yeah.
So especially like underground and those kind of things.
Because it gets very loud.
Yeah, underground parking.
Yeah.
It's loud as it is, so it's nice, proper. And he said it was weird. It came out and it was a proper zigzag like this is now. It comes out, it goes around and then swoosh straight down, one box at the bottom, and nice and loud.
Proper, yeah.
So,
As
yeah.
you can see, I'm rocking a little Babylina over here.
He's not just rocking because he's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I am a little
That's
bit crazy.
I was going to say that's when Linda's not here. Although I think you parents, because Daniel and Ashley do it as well,
Is it?
they rock the empty pram.
Yeah.
Push
It's
the
all
empty
soothing.
pram.
You think you're soothing them, but you actually see
Yeah, stand like that and you rock, but the child's on the couch, you know. Well, I've got the child. Like, what are you doing?
Okay, cool. So what we're trying to do is something new.
Something different.
Little shorter clips.
Mm.
We're going to try and release them more often during the week. So on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And they're going to be about 10 to 15 minutes long per clip. It's more bite size, it's more doable, and let us know what you think in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Like, follow, share,
Yes,
comment.
Absolutely.
Share. What else? Email us.
Yes.
Phone us if you know us.
Yes. Let us know. Send us a WhatsApp.
Send us a WhatsApp, yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. So today we are talking about prayer and fasting.
Mm.
Or in this clip at least,
Yeah.
prayer and fasting. What is your idea on prayer and fasting? Do you like it?
Yes and no. But it's not a no, it's a yes and I haven't been called.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been called.
Yeah.
So, for example, so prayer definitely, and it's one of the things I do at youth on a Friday night, is I try to have a prayer moment, I kind of call it, I like to call it, or prayer. And that moment can be 15 minutes, or it can be 30 seconds, you know.
Yeah.
I want the generations below me to understand that I put it this way, I don't want to give them doctrine, I don't want to go into all that. We can do that, but I don't necessarily want to do that. I want them to know that if they need God, get down on your knees and pray. You know, if something goes wrong, the first reaction must be to pray, not to, buy lottery tickets or whatever. You know what I mean? That's the example. Whatever. Someone's sick, pray for them. And we've been nuts on prayer, and we've been talking about prayer and lessons on prayer and faithfulness and these things. But in all that, I try to do so. Like now, obviously, with the whole Ukraine situation, we are often, almost every week, we're stopping for some reason at some stage, spreading them over, either baby boys and girls or their grades or whatever, and I'm making them purposely pray for children that are in that situation, and women that are in that situation, and the moms and the. I want them to understand that they can pray in South Africa and they will can change the world in Ukraine, kind of thing. So I'm all for that, absolutely 100% with that. But then on that, I'm a conversationalist with God more than I read that prayer book and I understand.
Can pray for day and night. They can sit there and pray.
I can't do that. I get distracted. I don't have the focus. I don't think I'm ADHD or ADD, but maybe I am. I can't focus on that kind of stuff. But constantly, if I can put the practice in my life of constantly speaking to God, so I drive, by myself in the car, talking as if there's someone there. Yes, it means I've got to talk and I've got to look crazy or whatever you want to say, talking to myself. But the point is that practice, I'm reinforcing it all the time. And then when something does happen, it's like immediately you want to go, oh Lord, can you please help with this or whatever it might be.
No,
So I do that. The other thing I like to do, I catch myself doing it, and it's a nice thing. I mean, today I was in a shopping centre, quickly buying something, buying lunch actually, breakfast.
Nice.
And I was coming out, and there was a guy that obviously I'm assuming lives in a park somewhere, kind of one of those kind of guys. Had an old tablet, I think, that he'd been given by the look of it, and he was trying to get it repaired, and obviously it wasn't fixable or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was right in front of me as I was walking out the centre, and I didn't stop and pray for him. I'm not super Christian, but I purposely was like, Lord, and like bless this guy. In my head, I'm like, I'm walking past him, I'm like, Lord bless him, and I just had the sense that, like I must say, almost asked God to give him back the life he had before, or restore him the life he was before, and whether that was when he was a child, was the last time he had dignity or whatever, not that he doesn't have dignity, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%,
I try to do that, or like if I drive past a car accident, I'm like, or there's that, you know what I mean?
Spirit will tug in your heart.
That kind of thing. I try to respond to that.
That's awesome. If you can
So that's what I heard from prayer wise. Fasting is not something that I really have been called to.
Okay.
Except for that time in the beginning of COVID, when the very first time we did, and that was crazy because like we were stuck in our house. It was level 5. We started this thing. We joined the group, whatever the story was, and I felt called to it, and I fasted, and God spoke to me in 2 or 3 times, different ways. The trees and whatever. And I mean, literally looking while I was lying on my couch watching the trees, because obviously we all know in that time we'd watched so much TV, we were done, kind of thing. And it was afternoon, I was sitting on the couch, and I remember looking out the window and seeing the trees blowing and whatever, and then God gave me a word, poof, about that. But other than that, I don't really feel called to fast. It's not been something. I've been called to lay stuff down, which is part of fasting. So sure, lay this down, or stop that, or don't watch TV now for the next while, kind of thing. But I don't feel like I'm constantly called to fast for things. I used to say when I was younger, because I love food too much. Ain't no way God would want me to give that up. But I actually do. My diet actually generally is intermittent fasting anyway. I have something to eat at 10 o'clock in the morning, and again at 8 o'clock and 7 o'clock at night. I'm not having lunch, and I don't have like breakfast, lunch, supper, kind of thing. So, and maybe that's why, because I don't need to be in a state of hunger, because I'm always hungry. You know what I mean? I don't have to, and that sounds. It's just the way I eat, kind of thing. So I'm always hungry after God. But I also think that when you can put that practice of praying all the time into place, you don't necessarily need to be called to fasting. Does that make sense? You can be, but you don't need to be, because you don't need to stop the distraction. You're connecting all the time. And I mean, it's a try. I don't get that right. I'm trying.
I know some ministers who they fast every day.
Yeah.
For the rest of their life, but they fast like 2 meals.
Yeah.
So they only eat supper, or they only eat lunch and supper, or something. Yeah. But every day they give up a meal.
Give up something,
in sacrifice, because in Romans 12, I think it says that it is your due diligence, or your least service that you can do is just present your body as a living sacrifice. And I think fasting, for me, people have a lot of weird ideas about fasting. I think they have like, okay, well, we're twisting God's arm, or we're going into the spirit world now, or something. God takes you into the spirit world, not fasting.
Yeah. Fasting is not about God, it's about you.
Exactly.
It's fasting about you focusing, refocusing.
Fasting is you taking your body and yourself and setting it aside and saying to God, with all my issues, with everything, I set myself aside from the world. I give myself to you and for your work. And you do with me as you please. Lead me, guide me, use me in whatever way you feel that I can be used, and stuff like that. So for me, I love fasting for that reason. I love, we fast regularly, and Amy makes food at night. Currently she would love to fast with me, but she can't because she's feeding Luna still. And I love sitting next to her and smelling her food.
But you're not eating it.
Smelling it. It's so good, and my mouth waters. And then the reason I do that is because the Bible says that your sacrifice will be a sweet smelling aroma to God. And so I sit there smelling that, and I think that me fasting and separating myself for His purpose and for His will, if I can smell even just half as good to that as that to God.
Yeah.
You know, how awesome is that? I would love to, you know, be able to give that. And even if that's the only thing that I get out of it, just as a God, here I am, you know, I'm pleasing in your sight.
I'm willing and able,
Also, I've seen a lot of times fasting, like, sometimes God would speak to me through a fast, but oftentimes, like, I would fast the whole thing and it would be like spiritual silence. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, like, once I've broken my fast and I kind of get back into my routine, all of a sudden, like, these words will just come to me and just stuff will come up in my heart and I'll just have clarity on things.
Yeah, I think,
and,
I think a miscommunication or a misthought on fasting that people have is that I'm going to fast now. So let's say I'm going to fast tomorrow, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to fast tomorrow, it's Friday, Saturday, whatever, and then I start fasting at 9 o'clock, and then at 10:30, boom, God drops this massive word in my life, and the world has changed.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's about. You know, and that's why I think sometimes when you break that fast afterwards, it happens because all it was is your obedience that needed to be there.
Yeah, 100%.
Your focus that needed to be there.
If God doesn't speak to you, you still fast. You know, that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You still present yourself as a sacrifice if He does nothing.
Exactly.
You know?
And it is interesting because I think, like, it's the same with for me, the practice of prayer, in that sense of focusing all the time. If, you know, there's certain things I don't have enough, so so for example, like, I'm single, so there's not someone else, I don't come home to someone else, so I'm not coming home to discuss, like, the day with someone else or whatever, I'm coming home to discuss the day with God, because that's who's around, you know, and that's not oh my word, you know, if I got married now I would stop that, I would hope not, but the point is that I have the ability to do that, you know, so let me do that, let me use that time, you know, you know, you have that relationship with Him, or builds that relationship with Him.
One thing that's exciting about praying, I read this quote many years ago, and I feel to a large extent was one of the seeds that got planted in my heart to put me where I am now. But there was a quote that I read that said, "History belongs to those who pray." And I was like,
that quote is actually in that book, I think.
That's powerful, eh? Like, history belongs to those who pray. And I think you can share that with your youth if you want. Because like, people who pray, like, you always hear, like, there was this guy, Charles Finney. He was a revivalist, and he would preach he was a bit of a fire and brimstone type guy.
I think they all were.
Yeah. And but nonetheless, he saw, like, God used him greatly. God did a lot of miracles in his services. God did a lot of you know, things like that. And one of the things that he had is there was an intercessor that no one knows about. Like, very few people know about it. Everyone knows about Charles Finney, but they don't know about the intercessor that felt called to pray for him and to work with him. So this intercessor would go, like, let's say they have, like, meetings all over South Africa. Like, next month they have a meeting in Joburg, or they have running meetings in Joburg. So this guy would, today, he would fly to Joburg and just walk the streets and pray and spiritually almost fill the ground.
It's one of the, he's one of the oaks in the book. Now that you said that,
is it?
I clicked, they did talk about that.
They would do these things.
Go there a month before them and then stand and walk where the tent was going to be or whatever, and actually pray that the ground would be fertile with God, if that makes sense.
And I mean, like, God honoured what they were doing, and He would show up. I mean, there was times when Charles Finney would walk, where he would just drive into a city. He would hear this at the conference, like, people would come up to testify. They said that they were sitting watching. I don't think TV was around them, but they were sitting in their house cleaning, or they were reading newspaper, or doing their thing. And all of a sudden, the whole family would just, like, fall on their face and start crying and repenting and giving their life back to God. They would become so aware of God's presence in their house that they would repent. And then they found out about this conference and they went there and they were like, well, this is what happened to us. And when they correlated the times, it's exactly when
you drove through
these people would drive through town. You know? And it's I'm not saying that this is not the power of people at all. No. God honoured what they were doing, and because of that, He
it's the power of prayer.
And
that's what I say to the youth. I'm like, I always tell them a story. I think there's a version that you've got as well. A missionary that was working somewhere in let's say, for example, India, and someone in England felt they must be called to pray for missionaries. They didn't know the person, called to pray for missionaries in India or wherever it was,
Yeah.
and they started praying in England, and all of a sudden the missionary would start getting stuff like a car, and they need it, but they didn't tell anyone they needed that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And because the person in England, I keep telling the kids that you don't understand, your prayer could be changing someone else's life somewhere else.
100%.
You know, your prayer. Let's bring it back into our city for their case. Exactly that kind of thing. You could be changing your school because you're praying. You know.
There's people in your class that you don't always agree with, or that look like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Pray for them, dude. Imagine
Exactly.
like how God, how nice would it be if everyone had a God-like mind? You know, they
Yeah.
all had the same unity. Not
Yeah.
to say they like vastly different people, but they all had the same goal, and everyone walked in unity. How awesome!
Correct.
That?
Yeah. Exactly.
So so I think to end off with that, nice and short one.
Mm.
Praying and fasting is very important,
Yeah.
and we encourage you to do that.
Yeah. It's a key. It's really a key. You want to open up things in your life. Start praying.
Yeah.
You know, and start fasting. You know, you want to open those things. You want to open the doors.
Yeah.
That's where it is, because it puts
Yeah.
you in.
Yeah.
It also, I think, just don't want to go too long, but it also, for me, it realigns me with what God's already doing.
100%.
So for example, let's say in my life, God's calling me to be humble and whatnot. I get lost in how I want something. I want a fancy car. I want a new house, or whatever the story might be.
Yeah.
When I start praying, He starts reminding me of those things, and it puts me back and realize, wait a minute, what I really want is on Sunday to be doing what I did this last Sunday. You know what I mean? Or how I get there doesn't matter. I got there and I got home. That's the importance, you know.
I've noticed it so much when I get to like day 3 or day 4 of a fast. Everything else it's like you get perspective.
Yeah.
Like the things that would upset you, or the things that would bother you, or the things that you wanted,
Yes.
just all kind of go away.
Go away, yeah.
It's like, okay, it's not that you don't want them. Like I still want to go on holiday. And I still
Yeah,
want
yeah,
nice things,
yeah.
but they like
They-
you see them for what they are.
Exactly.
You see them
Yeah.
for what they are.
Yeah.
You see clearly.
Awesome. Cool.
Bless you guys. See you in the next one.
Yeah.